We can create God in our image, or we can create God in his image. And God wants us to have an understanding, a somewhat understanding of God in his image. And have you ever wondered, even when reading the Bible, how that for some strange reason, not strange, I understand human nature. Human nature is to create things that give them the advantage. We create a country that gives us the advantage. We create a state that gives us a city. Whatever we create, it's created to give us the advantage. And I understand that why wouldn't we create a God that gives us the advantage? So when I read the Bible, I look at it and I said, wait a minute, this Bible was written by Jewish men for Jewish people, putting Jewish men in charge. And it was the Jewish men who said they were the elect of God. It was the Jewish men who said they were the chosen of God. It wasn't the Egyptians who said it. It wasn't the Assyrians who said it. It wasn't the Amalekites or the Jebusites or the Hittites. These were the Jewish men declaring by themselves that God had chosen them. And isn't that strange? Or is that really make a lot of sense that if God was going to choose anybody, he would choose you? And so you read the Bible. That's why you have to read the Bible through filters and understanding a God that created all of us, that loves all of us, that's interested in all of us, that chooses all of us, that elects all of us. But as long as you're reading this Bible from a Jewish perspective, from the more specifically from a Jewish male perspective, then that's the understanding of the Bible that you're going to get. It's always going to be from a Jewish male perspective. And then what we try to do is that we try to take this ancient Jewish male perspective, and then we try to somehow adapt it to 21st century America. And we know nothing about this culture. We know nothing about the way that they saw things, because, see, we are to be progressively knowing and understanding God. God never changes. He has never changed. The Bible is not God explaining himself to us. The Bible is a book about men trying to explain God to themselves. I'll say that again. The Bible is not a book about God explaining himself to us. The Bible is an attempt, in some cases, a very terrible attempt of God, of men explaining God to themselves. That's why you see things like by the sixth chapter of Genesis, God has even changed his mind about creating us. The God who has foreknowledge is now saying, I'm sorry, I created you all. Well, wouldn't he have known that before he created us? No, that's man explaining God to himself. And again, what did they end up saying? That if you don't become like us, you don't look like us, you don't follow our rules, you don't follow what we say, then what? Then we're going to create a God that's going to torture you. In fact, God gives us permission to torture you. God tells us that we could go in and we could take everything that you got. And like in some cases, we can keep all the virgins for ourselves. And here's the thing, deep down inside, you know that can't be true. You know that all of this stuff that we read in the Bible from these Jewish men who are looking at life from a Jewish male perspective, that women have no rights, that they can divorce a woman, but the woman can't be divorced. Women, if you have a male child, you get, what was it? You could stay in the house for 4 weeks because somehow you're unclean. But if you have a female child, you got to stay in there because you're unclean. You got to stay in there for 8 weeks because you're unclean. You know that that has nothing to do with God, that this is all Jewish male perspective. And sometimes we got to step back and we've got to say, wait a minute, how much of this is God? Well, how can I know? Because God lives on the inside of all of us. I said, God lives on the inside of all of us. And we have to stop and think we have to rightly divide the Bible. And we have to understand we take the Bible seriously, but we don't take the Bible literally, that everything that these Jewish men said, they fully understood about God, because it's easy to disprove that a lot of things don't make any biological sense. It doesn't make any medical sense, that these men were doing the best they can to figure God out, just like you and me. We're doing the best we can to figure God out. But to take this book and say, God, this is all God, and if God said it, I believe it. We don't believe that. We cherry pick what we believe about the Bible. We cherry pick. We don't believe in plucking somebody's eyes out if our eyes offend you, or cutting your hands off if they offend you. We don't believe it. We don't even believe that a woman should be locked up in the house when she's on a menstrual cycle. Again, these are Jewish men who didn't have a clue, and then want to pass it off that this is God. And the last thing, men get angry, men get pissed off, men get enrages. And what do? They end up projecting this rage on God, this anger on God, and now God becomes a God of revenge. God becomes a God of anger. And if you don't become like us, we're going to create a God that's going to come back, and he's going to torture you. And there's going to be six-headed dragons, and he's coming in on a horse, and he's going to get everybody that's not like us. That is a Jewish male, an ancient Jewish male perspective of God. But I'm asking you to go inside of the God inside of you, the God that created you in his image. And then that's why Paul said the children of God are really led by the Spirit of God. It says the letter kills, but it's the Spirit that gives life. And the life of God is inside of you. And you will recognize the life of God, whether you're reading the Bible, listening to a sermon, reading a book, or listening to one of your friends. You know, based on what's inside of you, what's of God and what is not. So we have to be careful that we have not created a God in our image, but we strive to mold and shape ourselves after God in his image. If this has been a blessing to you, hit like, share, tell someone about this. Is just a little tidbit. Later on, I'm going to go deep. I'm going to take a deep dive into creating God in our image. Basically, people are not narcissistic. We want everything to be like us. So why wouldn't we create a God to be just like us? But we're going to take a deep dive. Keep watching for this. And I believe this has been a blessing to you. If you want to subscribe to our channel, you can. But look out for the Pastor Jay podcast every Thursday at 10:30. Remember, we've got to make sure that we're not creating God in our image.